comments?
Nope, I don't have any.
I received it and I don't have any questions.
Okay, looking for a motion then.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I think Todd first and Andy or Mark seconded that. So Mark, start us on.
Doing a little bit of restructuring. So right now we have 3 vacancies in the department. Donna's Wayne, and then we added a new position as well. So we've been interviewing, some interviews better than others. But hopefully by this time next month, we'll have at least a couple of the positions filled and be able to report back on that. We got word yesterday that we were successful in receiving the APPA RP3, which stands for Reliable Public Power Provider Award. This is the 3rd time, and it's good for 3 years. So Rachel won't have to do all that for another 3 years. So, well, 2.5 years now. But the 4 areas that it focuses on are reliability, safety, workforce development, and system improvement. So you have to answer, was it probably 5 or 6 questions on each of those areas and provide supporting information. So things like having impact fees and system plans and those kind of things, it just shows we're doing the right things to be where we should be. So that was good. Probably one of the biggest items is what I've got up on the screen here. Looks like a sea of numbers, but what this is we were able to secure a fairly long-term power purchase from starting in April of 25 going through, what is that, October of 29, of different amounts. And normally we've only done this. LLH stands for low load hours, which is 11 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning. High loads the other remaining 16 hours. ATC's around the clock, meaning a 24-hour product. And then super peak is from 2 o'clock till 2100, what's that, 9 o'clock? So we were able to, most of the purchases we've made in the past have only been low load and high load. And what that does, particularly in the summer, it makes us long where we have our solar on. And so in the early morning. And so getting a super peak product matches our load shape a little better. And we were successful in getting a provider to be willing to basically give us the 4 different types. Most of the time, a traditional high load product, you don't get it on Sunday. And they were able to negotiate with them to where we'll have that 7 days a week, because our load really doesn't change that much on a Sunday like somebody that might be heavy industrial. Ours is primarily residential and commercial. Our commercial really doesn't change on the weekends. So I think it'll be a real positive thing. The price was just a little over $80, and that's a blended price for that whole period out 5 years. So there'll be times when the market will be below that, and there'll be times that the market will be higher than that. But what it does is it gives us a good, stable base to go on. Our previous 5-year product ends in April or ends in March of 27. And so you'll see the numbers starting in 27, particularly over the summer, get bigger. And that's to make up for what we lose from that other 5-year product. So, and this should address the bulk of our needs, but particularly over the summer months, we'll still have room or needs to purchase smaller amounts. So we'll keep an eye on those, but Jake and Jeremy and I felt really good about being able to get this put together. And again, it gives us a little more stability. So if the market goes crazy, we've got the bulk of our power already secured, and we know what that cost is. So again, you can always play the hindsight game and hope you find something cheaper, and compare, but I think it's better to have a known than be exposed to those wild swings like we had a couple years ago. So that was a really big thing. We've been working on that for probably 4 or 5 months, putting this profile together and going back and forth with UAMPS and the suppliers. So that's, again, probably the biggest item we have to report on tonight. We've turned in our first draft of the fiscal year 26 budget, which will start in July. The main thing, or the largest project in that for the upcoming year, is continuing with the Grapevine transmission lines as well as the Grapevine sub. And with delivery of materials, I'm suspecting it'll be probably towards the end of 26 before they get completed. But we keep chipping away, ordering things. In fact, the battery charger just showed up today and got shipped here by accident instead of out at the plant, but we'll get it moved out there. So our January peak was 21.7 megawatts, which is about 2 megawatts higher than what our previous January peak was. I think that was just, we did have a few days in there that were kind of cold, unlike today. Loads today have been about 10. So again, the temperature really moves that around. Just a little more update on the Grapevine projects. The battery systems have been awarded, and like I said, the charger was delivered today. The relay panels have been awarded. The steel bids were received last week, and ICP is working on that evaluation. Excuse me. And we should have a bid package out for the foundations and below grade work, I'm hoping in the next month or so, because we need to have the foundation for the transformer in by mid-June. Virginia Transformer indicated we should expect it late June, early July. So we need to have that pad in place, which is really the only thing that is hard to move, or we can't move with our own equipment after. So we want it just to come in on the truck and set it on the pad and be done instead of moving it twice. Transmission lines, there's still, I think I reported last month, we had the steel pole bids. Some of them were missing some information, and we've got that back, and ICPE is looking at that and making a recommendation as well. Got a few little pictures on a couple projects. It's hard to see. This is probably most people have noticed the last month or so. Red Hills Parkway to the west of Green Springs has been under construction. I think they opened it yesterday or over the weekend or something. But while they were doing that work, we took the opportunity to put in some conduits. Right now that area is fed on some old direct buried cables. And so while they were in there digging things up and crossing the roads, we put in a set of conduits, which wasn't really planned, but it was a good time to do it. And then we've got in next year's budget the cable to put in that, and then that'll give us a better backfeed to that area over there. So just a couple pictures, and again, they came across the road, and this is right by where I want to say Ahern, but now it's, I think, United Rentals. That's that intersection there. So they worked, and then we did a directional bore across Green Springs because nobody wanted to tackle that with an open trench and dealing with the traffic. So, and this is the other end of it. So we did a bore shot across there, and basically with very minimal traffic disturbance, just when you're potholing to find the utilities so you don't hit them with the drill. It's a little bit pricey, but when you're crossing a road like that, it's well worth it, so. And then they've still got a little bit of work, like taking the end of this conduit and taking it over to a basement. There's 3 little sections we still have left, but it's outside of the construction zone. I kind of can do that as it fits into the work availability, so. Give you an update on the AMI project. I think last month we had got I don't know if we had the DCUs going, but we've got all 6 of the DCUs installed. They're communicating. We got our first set of meters, 4 single phase and 4 3-phase. The 3-phase had a few issues on the profile data, and so they're sending out another. They want to get the configurations right, so they sent us some test meters. So we're working on that, and then our first larger shipment of, I think it'll be 300 or 400 meters will be towards the end of this month that we start getting some actual meters in our stock. We're still working with Steve with our IS department on the software or the file exchange between the new Aclara software and our billing software. And so that's probably the biggest hurdle we have right now, is to get all that software exchange back and forth happy and working. And so I'm hoping within a month or so, we'll be able to actually feel pretty confident that we can set a meter, read it remotely, and send them a bill. So that will be really, really good. Our GIS update is basically done. Tyler and Dale are still doing some final tweaks before they make it easier for us to see. We'll probably have a period of time we'll be able to see both the old and the new as the crews get used to the new system. It'll be really good. And then Jake this last month also worked with our SCADA provider, and we've done an upgrade on that, which will provide some load forecasting capabilities, some better redundancy in the head-end software, and kind of sets us up over a 2 or 3 year period to add some features to that, but we needed to get to this newer platform. And so we've done a lot of upgrades. So far they're going well. Just like all software stuff, it can be a little tricky at times, but we'll get there. One other bigger project that the crews have been able to complete is the road down from Solis on the top of the Highlands Bluff down into the Sienna Hills area, that new road they cut in. We have now a feeder that comes down that road and is tied in. So that whole bluff on top, we've never had a backfeed capability for that. So if the wrong cable failed, that whole bluff would be out until we got it repaired. So now we have a backfeed that we can go 2 different directions. And there was part of Sienna Hills that same way that was just kind of hanging out there, and we were able to make a tie. So nobody's going to notice that other than if there's an outage or something like that. That will give us a lot more capabilities. You'll see the crews, they actually started today on finishing the telegraph underbuild reconductor project. So you'll see them from 300 East to about where they're building the new apartments. That section in there will be working on replacing a couple poles and then replacing the conductor. Hopefully it should be done, and things go well maybe by the time we meet in March. So a couple other pictures. This particular pole used to have a transmission switch on it. I didn't get there before they pulled it down. We did the work at Main Street Sub. It was about 3 spans away, and there's a switch in there, so it was kind of redundant. So we took that switch down and we'll repurpose it on the transmission lines going to Grapevine. Because these switches are running about 25,000 a piece, so we can't afford just to have extra ones. And there's 2 more we're going to take down for same reason in this area, and then they'll get repurposed on as we build that those new transmission line segments. So anyway, just give you some pictures of the crew out doing stuff. So this is one that we've been showing lately. Our average cost for power in December was about 7.5 cents, which because it was lower than the 10.7 cents last December, the PCA dropped again to this basically negative 1.7 cents. And I suspect that's gonna remain, and will probably go up or down from that a little bit, because it's gonna be based now on these numbers that were much lower than the 23 numbers. So if January of 25 comes in higher than the 8.6 here, the PCA will go up, be less negative, if you will, right now. But if it's lower, it would come down a little. But with these I don't anticipate us beating these prices a lot this year.
Are the prices stabilizing because the conditions in California have stabilized a little bit?
I think probably the biggest thing that's helped is the hydro in the West has been better the last couple of years. So I think that was one of the things that really drove those prices up a couple of years ago.
Was the lack in those sources and stuff?
Yeah, and so if those utilities don't have the hydro resource, now they've got to go buy it on the market, which is the same one we've been buying from. And so keep an eye on, even though it's not hydro here in Washington County, our costs are impacted by what goes on in the whole West. And then we also had some extreme heats across the entire region, those kind of things.
I just saw a couple of articles that said that a couple of reports came out on the West Coast that some of their solar resources were actually performing to standards, so they were meeting some of their needs and stuff. So that's what, so they weren't out on the market, whether it was solar or the water side.
And so if you have any of those significant sources for whatever reason go down, that can really impact the prices. In fact, I think when we had that cold spell in January, we'd been on the market probably $30 to $50, and there was one day it spiked up to over 100. Just because it got cold, demand went up, those kind of things. So again, going back to the purchase, we'll have some protection against that going forward.
So the fires in California didn't affect us?
No, not at this point. I don't really foresee big impacts there. Again, a lot of it's going to depend on what kind of summer we have. So, but I suspect or hope that our pricing will remain similar to what we had in 24 for 25, and if that's the case, the PCA would kind of stabilize at that level. So. No. It's just the opposite. Yeah, there's a lot of load growth going on, not just here, but on the overall grid. So, and this showed the peak from January. If you look, there's a little green dot over here. So 25 is going to be green. And then our average usage for residential was up from the previous, 3 or 4 years. And I think it's that cold spell in there that kind of drove that up just a little bit. So just kind of an interesting thing to kind of watch in the trend. So, but it's still lower than what it has been in like 2020. So, and that's pretty much for our general system. I still need to bring a proposal to update our solar policy because we are starting to get close to the 4 megawatts that we had in that policy, and there's a few other little tweaks I'd want to make, but I just haven't had the time to really sit down and bring something forward. So, any questions, or do you want to move on to UAMPS? Okay.
What are we thinking our timeframe's going to be on the AMI metering?
Well, once we get through the software hurdles and getting them all working, I'm anticipating we'd roll it out relatively slow for the first 2 or 3 months until I'm sure there's going to be a kink or something's going to happen somewhere along there that I just don't want to put out several hundred meters and have a problem and have several hundred people mad.
Sure.
Or not trust the meters. So it'll be somewhat of a slow rollout up front, and then as we gain more confidence and get meters in stock. Certainly, one of the first targets will be new installations once we have some meters in stock and good confidence, because it doesn't make sense to put an old one out and then 2 months later go swap it out. And then, so that's the general plan. Once we get to that point, we'll deploy a few, and I think I've said before, I think you guys are one of the candidates that I think would be good to test out, and maybe some of the other city employees. So that's the general thought, but yeah, I want to make sure our billing is working right, and we got real good confidence before we just do 100 meters at a time. So, and it's going to take, I would say, 18 months to 24 months to get them all swapped out. So it's a pretty big project there. So that answer your question, Todd?
Yes, it did. Thank you. That makes sense.
On the UAMP side, the Millard County, the Peaker PMC was formed. The Power County, the base load, we're still a little bit short. Logan so far didn't approve their participation at this point. So UAMPS is working with other internal UAMPS utilities as well as external that would be interested in picking up that unsubscribed portion. So the PMC on that project has not been formed until we hit that 85% subscription. Kind of the theme of this time of year, we're working on the UAMPS budget. Had several budget meetings, going up to Salt Lake tomorrow for another one. And then one of the things that we're gonna be trying as a UAMPS board is basically our main in-person meetings. We're gonna try to do an every other month schedule with virtual ones on the off months. We'll kind of see how that goes. It actually frees up UAMP staff time quite a bit because they spend a lot of time preparing for those meetings, as well as it reduces the board travel costs and those things. So we'll keep an eye on it. It's worth, everybody felt like it was worth giving a shot. If not, we can go back to what we've been doing. Covered our wholesale purchases. On the Central St. George project, all the Washington County utilities are working together, and we believe we can meet the goal of having the 138,000 volt system looped this summer. And what that means for the area is it improves reliability. Say the line that feeds to the Purgatory sub right now out by the racetrack and in that area in Hurricane. If that line had a problem and trips off, it loses Lavercan, Olive Hurricane, about a third of Dixie and about a third of our load on that one line. If we get the system looped, if that same thing happens, nobody would even know that it happened. And so that's the reason for it. Otherwise, and it will be more cost effective to improve reliability without building a bunch more lines. So there's a few things that have to come together to make that happen this summer. But everybody on the meeting last week felt like it was doable. So, and it's really not a horrible thing. If it doesn't happen, it's no different than we've been forever. So I think most of the other UAMPs, we had actually a reduced number of meetings in January. The Nebo plant, Vail plants are both running well. The the state guys up there, all the legislators they're in session right now, and energy, if you've been paying attention to the news, is a hot topic. And so UAMPS is keeping an eye on bills that may come forward that could impact us. So both for good or bad. I did forget to note on the Millard County project, we do have a meeting tomorrow as well in conjunction with the budget meeting, and one of the things they're working on is the site control, getting that secured and finalized. So, but things seem to be moving forward on that project well. Our solar projects, they all had a capacity factor about 20% in December, which is pretty typical for that time of year. It'll raise up to the 25 to 30 during the summer. We have more sunlight, so. And we continue to work on, there's 2 wind projects, 2 geothermal projects, and of course the Power County natural gas project. Still working on getting the term sheets, the power sales contracts completed, and some of those projects they're hoping would be ready to bring back to the governing boards in April or May, June timeframe. So probably not next month, but potentially in the next 2 to 3 months, might be bringing, similar to what we did with the natural gas projects for approval and moving forward with those. So, and some of the wholesale purchasing and stuff is affected by which projects come on and when they'll come on will impact what we may do with those. So the wind projects, Horse Butte and Pleasant Valley, they actually, again, this time of year, I guess it's more stormy, so Horse Butte actually had a capacity factor of 38%, which is pretty good for the wind projects. And Pleasant Valley was at 34, so. And finally, on the CFPP project, they're making progress with the Department of Energy on closing out some of the paperwork there. Of course, the change in administration didn't make that go quicker, but there's no major hiccups. It's just changing some faces and stuff. So unless anybody's got more questions, that's kind of my quick report. And that's what I got this month.
I don't have any questions. Anyone else?
No questions here. But thank you for
Nope.
the purchase of that power ahead of time. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, again, I really hope it'll provide some stability that we haven't had in the past, so,
So,
thank you.
okay, well, if there's no questions, our next meeting is March 4th? Yep, March 4th will be our next meeting. So, does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Mark motioned and Todd seconded. So Todd, would you start us on a vote?
Spriggs, aye.
Mark
Hauser, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us online, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Mike, for representing.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
You guys take care.
You too.
We'll see ya. Bye.